I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'm going to call roll call for quorum. Todd Tolke.
Here.
Kate Parker.
Here.
Carly Ryder.
Here.
Cynthia Mickelson is here, and Board Member Baker is just walking in. So we have all present, 2 in person and 3 via call-in. We're continuing the call-in for most of the staff as well, to allow for public input and to provide a social distancing platform so that we are following that. So we will move on to the start of the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll move on to the approval of the minutes of the meeting held April 13th, 2020. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Board Member Baker. Do I have a second?
Second, Ryder.
Second by Board Member Ryder. All those in favor signify by saying aye. I'll do roll call vote. Board Member Tolke.
Aye.
Board Member Parker.
Aye.
Board Member Ryder.
Aye.
Board Member Baker.
Aye.
And Board Member Mickelson. Aye. The approval of the minutes held on April 13th is approved. No one signed up to address the board, correct, Todd? Okay. We'll move on to approval of agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved, Parker.
Moved by Board Member Parker. Tolke second. All those in favor, I'll do roll call. Tolke.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Ryder.
Aye.
Baker.
Aye.
And Mickelson. Aye. It's approved. Well, good news report.
Okay. Thank you. I have a number of things to go over here tonight, not quite as many as 2 weeks ago, but still a good number. Really kind of updates on where we are in terms of navigating our whole new normal. First of all, we will send out information today on re-engaging the community for redrawing boundaries. Information went out on restarting that engagement process to inform our community a week in advance of those meetings. We'll still have 5 meetings as we begin this process. The first meeting will be next Monday evening at 7 p.m. For anybody listening, I would ask you to please look at our website and you will see all of the information on how to see the meeting and how to participate in that meeting. It will be a virtual meeting, but we will truly ask the community to be a part of that and be engaged in that process. We believe our community can still drive this process. Can you hear me? Is that better? Can you hear me now?
Ben, will you take that?
I am right over the Polycom. Can you hear me now? Let me ask this. Board Member Tolke, can you hear me? I wonder if
It's still plugged in over here.
Can any board member hear me?
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
Oh, Kate and Carly lost some. They can hear each other, but not us.
Carly, we can hear each other on the phone, but we can't hear anybody else.
What do we do, Deanne?
I cannot hear anybody that
If all else falls, we could do it by our cell phones. Yes.
Can you hear me now, board members? For those of you potentially watching and hoping to be able to get to you soon,
I tried
we
that.
tried that. Probably going to have to call back in.
We
just
tried that.
Tried that.
It says pool. What does that mean? Shouldn't be on.
One of these? One of these or this?
I think we're trying to figure it out.
I'm gonna push buttons until I.
One day at some point we could watch it on Facebook Live if you want to see presentation.
Can you hear us now?
Did I make that up? I'm watching it. I'm watching it too on YouTube.
Can you hear us now?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I think we can all hear it. I think we can hear it. You are no longer muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Something just came over and said you are no longer muted. So somehow or another we got muted. Can board members, can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah.
Okay, so we will proceed. We're not sure what happened there, but Board President Mickelson and myself are certain we didn't cause the problem. Okay, so I will start over with the good news report. And the first item for the report is redrawing boundaries. Information went out today on restarting the engagement process with the community. We will still have the 5 meetings as originally planned, with the first meeting being scheduled for next Monday night, May 4th at 7 p.m. We're asking you to please go to our website for specific information on how to watch the meeting, but also on how to participate, how to be able to speak in that meeting. We believe that our community can still drive this process, and we can still meet the timelines of having 5 community engagement meetings, have 1 more task force meeting, have a Board of Education work session, and then ultimately a Board of Education decision concluding with the board meeting on June 22nd. While there is a lot to do, we still believe there's time to perform this task in a meaningful way without feeling like we have rushed the process. So we will begin the community engagement portion of redrawing boundaries next Monday night. Please see our website for more detailed information on the dates that we will be available and on how to access the meeting, to watch it, or to participate as a spokesperson at the meeting. Any questions on that topic? Okay, I'll move to the next, my next item of business tonight is the order from the governor. As you might recall, the governor discussed how workers in several vulnerable categories should stay home for at least 3 weeks. Those 3 weeks concluded with the conclusion of last week, and she has extended that by 2 more weeks. So we, as mentioned a couple of weeks ago, first of all, we still think the order makes good sense. We have been following that order and will continue to follow that order. There has been an impact to our workforce. We continue to adjust schedules and consider the impact on several issues with our workforce, including sick leave options for those who are ordered to stay home. I will move on to the next topic in the absence of any questions on that issue. Okay. Last Friday, we received a call from the CDC. As a result of that call, Deanne Conrad, Molly Satter, Demi Moore, and Patty Lake Torbert got on a call to discuss how we could help communicate with families of Smithfield workers. As you know, we're happy to help in any way we can mitigate the health crisis, and in many ways we're well equipped to do so as a community member. This group was very interested in our liaison work and our connection to families. Our district has been part of a larger group involving the city, various nonprofit agencies, and Smithfield executives in conjunction with the CDC in an effort to care for children of Smithfield workers who are quarantined. Our school liaisons, social workers, and school counselors have played an integral role in the past couple of weeks getting students food, school materials, and cleaning supplies to help their family overcome their illnesses. These staff are checking in with phone calls and emails to learn about the needs not only of the student, but of the entire family. We're grateful for the already strong relationships established between our staff and these families, many of whom do not always trust governmental agencies. We're pleased to be able to be that intermediary for that conversation. Any questions on that topic? Next, graduation. I don't want to beat a dead horse. I know we've talked about this quite a bit and it's been in the media, but I just wanted to formalize it. You've seen the new plan. I'm most pleased with the amount of engagement we've received from the senior students themselves. We had a survey that went out. We got about a 40% participation rate in that survey. I said to one media outlet, if you are getting a grade and your grade is 40%, that's a bad thing. If you're doing a survey and you get a 40% response rate, that's pretty good. So we feel pretty good about that. I do wonder what happened to the other 60%, but 40% isn't too bad, and we'll certainly accept that. So we not only had that survey, but we had several virtual conversations with students from each high school. And those conversations led us from a discussion that started out with, do you want a virtual ceremony or do you want a face-to-face ceremony? And that conversation quickly changed to, we want a virtual ceremony and a face-to-face ceremony. The reason for both, the evolution was the beginning portions of the conversations were nearly unanimous in that the students wanted the face-to-face ceremony. They want to see each other again. I thought it was they wanted to see me, but after further review, they want to see each other. They're really excited to be able to be together again. But during the course of that conversation, we had two separate students who talked about their military enlistment and didn't think they would be able to be here for a face-to-face ceremony if we had to change that May 24th ceremony. And almost immediately you could hear the conversation go from virtual or in person to virtual and in person. And how could I say no to that? I thought it just made perfect sense. And once we got over that, how do we include all seniors? And we found out it's not just our students who have military enlistment. We have some who will work and will work out of town, out of state, and will do so nearly immediately. We have kids for a variety of reasons who won't be around in June. So we wanted to make sure that there was some way to honor their graduation, and the virtual component on May 24th is how we got to that position. So that decision really fell into place fairly quickly once we began the conversation portion of our data. The next piece that came up was where would we have it? And Howard Wood Field became a very good option for the ceremony for several reasons. Number one, Howard Wood Field is ours, so we control the availability of the facility. Well, we looked at the arena and the options there, and there were options available, but not necessarily the ones that we would hand pick if we were looking at options. Also, we wanted to have multiple dates and not just the one date. So having Howard Wood Field really helped us with that issue. It also avails itself quite well to social distancing, should that still be part of our protocol. And so that we thought was a very good thing. And then the third thing is from a very practical perspective, we own the facility, so there's no additional cost incurred to have that facility available for us. So those three things were those three reasons were very good reasons why we thought Howard Wood Field could be quality for this event. The downside, the thing that we don't control, is the weather. So, and today we don't have a backup plan for inclement weather. So we'll hope for good weather, and we'll also try to figure out what we might do in the event that we have rain. What we've heard a little bit from parents is a little bit of rain's not problematic, but a storm or lightning sure is. So we'll play that by ear as we get closer to those dates. And that's it. I thought I had something else, but that is it. I will stand by for any questions on any of those topics. Not seeing any, I'll pass the Polycom back to
Hopefully I
President
didn't screw
Mickelson.
it up. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't screw it up this time. Thank you. Well, thank you, Dr. Maher, for all that information, and to everybody who has been working on this. And I had asked the question what we were doing for our Smithfield families at our last board meeting, so I really appreciate that, how you guys stepped up to the plate and helped them with that. And you are so true in stating that family members often don't trust those in government and those type of entities. So for us, with already having those relationships established with the families, I think that's just fabulous that we were able to do that. So thank you. Okay, now on to conflicts of interest. No new conflicts of interest were presented to the board. I'll move on to approval of the consent agenda, items 9A through H. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Board Member Baker. Do I have a second?
Second, Parker.
Second by Parker. All those in favor? Board Member Tolke? Did we lose time? Board Member Parker?
Aye.
Board Member Ryder?
Aye.
Board Member Baker?
Aye.
Board Member Mickelson? Aye. So that passes with 4 votes and 1 abstention. On to the supplemental consent agenda, 10A, 1 through 2. Approval of claims to Sanford Healthcare. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, so moved.
Tolke. Second by Baker. I'll take roll call. Tolke.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Reiter. Oh. Just say abstain.
Abstain.
Baker.
Aye.
Mickelson abstain. That passes with 3 votes aye and 2 abstentions from Board Member Ryder and Board Member Mickelson. On to 10B, approval of claims to Avera McKinnon. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Baker moves. Second.
Ryder, second.
Board Member Tolke.
Aye.
Board Member Parker.
Same.
Board Member Ryder.
Aye.
Board Member Baker.
Aye.
Board Member Mickelson. Aye. That passes 4-1, or 4 ayes and 1 abstention. Board Member Parker. We will now move on to the reports of the superintendent.
Go ahead, Jim. Oh, that's right. You just check to see that the board members can hear you.
Board Member Tolke, can you hear me still?
I can.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, board members and President Mickelson. Tonight, we do have 3 calendars to bring forward to you for 3 different recommendations coming in for calendars. I will start with the first of which is the 2021-2022 school year calendar. With this is a proposal from the calendar committee, and this hits on our priority area number 4 with our community engagement, and our priority statement number 9, where we work to engage our community, our parents, and all stakeholders in the decision-making process. With this, we did have a committee. The committee consisted of 29 individuals. Of those 29 individuals, we did have 6 parents, withstanding the teachers and employee groups and administration and school board members. So there were 6 parents, and then all the other groups that were represented there, including the 2 school board members that were part of this committee. I will go on here and just give you a little bit of a background information as we arrived at this calendar and the preparation for this calendar. As we started in the 2018-2019 school year calendar, we did look for input from our community. At that time, we gathered over 11,000 community responses through input sessions that we held, through online input information, and through a survey. We utilized those 11,000 responses to create the calendar that we had for the 18-19 school year. We then continued that calendar through the 19-20 school year, or that format of the calendar through the 19-20 school year. But then again, prior to the 2021 school year, we did seek out community input again, because at that point in time, then individuals had a chance to experience that calendar, where we started just before the Labor Day break. And we received about 8,600 responses at that time, actually just over 8,600 responses through a survey. And it again confirmed the format that we were using was the format that the community wanted to utilize. The things were the key points of that format was to be able to start prior to the Labor Day weekend, but not too far before it. We also wanted to end school year prior to the Memorial Day break, and the majority were in favor of a very short first week of school, and then a majority were also in favor of having a 4-day Labor Day break. So those are the things that we've utilized for the last 4 school years in creating these calendars. The calendar committee in general adopted a year ago a tentative guideline for starting the school year. The start to the school year would begin with a 2-day week, which would be a Thursday and Friday for students. Then it'd be followed by a 4-day week, Monday through Thursday for students, and then that 4-day Labor Day weekend. The calendar committee also agreed to conclude the school year calendar, if at all possible, by Memorial Day. And obviously at times there's things, as we experienced this year, that are sometimes beyond our control. The calendar committee also looked at these key considerations this year as we went through. We've had extensive feedback on Native American Day and Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and we did have those 2 as no school days, or at least no student days, through this proposed calendar. We also looked at the state girls or boys basketball tournament when that's in Sioux Falls, and I'll talk a little bit more about that coming up. We also looked at the early dismissal for the elementary and the late start for the middle school and how we can make those look the same, and I'll talk a little more on that coming up. And then we also wanted to minimize the missed days by staff and students and continue to start just before Labor Day using that agreement that we had come upon a year ago with the calendar committee. Talk a little bit more just about the state basketball tournament. When the state basketball tournament is in Sioux Falls for the AA, it does take a significant number of employees of the Sioux Falls School District to be able to run or man that tournament. And so one of the days that we are going to have as a compensatory day for the parent-teacher conferences is during that state tournament. Every other year, it'll be either the boys or the girls in Sioux Falls for the state AA tournament. And so that Friday of that state tournament, we recommend to have one of the days of compensatory days where we would not have school. That'll help to cut down on the number of students that are missing for school, and also not require us the need to hire as many subs that we would have to replace those teachers or other individuals that are working out at the state tournament. The second significant area that we looked at and was brought up by one of the board members during the committee discussions was when we have the in-service, and there's twice a year we have an in-service for elementary and middle school. High school has a regular day, but elementary would have an early dismissal and middle school would have a late start. And just to be able to be more aware of our community and our families and how we can help them, especially in supervising and watching over some of their younger siblings, We did work with the elementary and middle schools to make that so that both will be an early dismissal on those days with the in-service. And so those were two significant pieces that we talked about this time, to be able to coincide part of that, at least one of the days, with the state basketball tournament when it's in Sioux Falls, and to look at that elementary and middle school in-service time. So the key dates on the 21-22 school year calendar, this first student day would be on August 26th. October 11th would be a no school day, and that's Native American Day. November 5th and April 1st are those days with the early dismissal for elementary and middle school in-service for the teachers. January 13th would be the end of the first semester, and January 17th would be a no school day. It's an in-service day, but it's Martin Luther King Jr. Day. On March 18th is the compensatory day, which would be the girls' state basketball in Sioux Falls. So that Friday, we would not have students in school or teachers. May 24th would be the last student day proposed, and May 29th would be graduation for the 21-22 school year. The committee did show a vote in favor of bringing this proposal forward, and it was the first time the vote was unanimous. It was 22 in favor and 0 opposed to bringing this recommendation forward to the school board for the 21-22 school year calendar. So the administrative recommendation was to approve the 21-22 school year calendar based on the calendar committee's work and unanimous recommendation as detailed in the attachments. And I did include, it is hard to see in here, but I did include that calendar, which has those dates that we had discussed. So I stand by for any questions for the 21-22 school year calendar.
No questions, but I know, I don't know if they can hear me because it's a thing, but I want to just commend Board Member Parker for having that idea to combine the in-service or the early dismissal, late start days. That was brilliant. So thank you for bringing that up, because I do think that will help our families out a lot with that issue with the starts.
I just have a question. Do you have that executive summary that you're able to pull up?
The executive summary, I do have the individual summary for each.
Just that, I think that we might have a mistitle within that for the 2021 should.
Carly, we're having a hard time hearing what the deal
Why don't you just summarize?
One moment.
Why don't you just summarize?
We're only on the, are you on the 21-22 or the 2021?
I'm on the, I think it was mistitled the 21. It should be the 21-22 on the executive summary on the second page. And it also states that August 26th, which is Wednesday on 2020, and Thursday on 2021, that's how I know that. And it also states the last day of school will be May 24th, which should be Monday on 2021 and Tuesday on 2022. Yeah. No. So that, just that the title was incorrect. That's all.
On what page?
Page 2. Show you the recommended changes to that.
So those that are listening, there's just a discussion on the board report and a potential date that may be an error on there.
And just see page 2.
Yeah, that should be
20. Yeah. So here would be my recommended changes before adopting the calendar on the executive summary.
Remember, you're voting on the calendar. Does the calendar change, or this
I'm
just the
not sure.
executive
This is
summary?
my first look at it, or, you know, look at how it reads on there. So I'm not sure how it reads on the printed one, but just it would be that on page 1 of the executive summary, if we go down under the explanation of strategic initiative 4.8 to 1, I would just recommend, right now it reads 2020-2021. My recommendation would be to change that to 2021 to 2022, school year calendar committee recommendation. And likewise on that same page 1, it would be right above where the calendar committee makes the recommendations. I would recommend that we make the change so it would read, the calendar committee recommend the following dates of significance for the 2021-2022 school year based upon our review of stakeholder feedback supporting information of the 2021 school calendar.
And I looked at the dates are correct, though. The 26th is correct, and the May 24th is correct. Yep,
Good.
for that.
Okay.
So the
So those
dates are
would-
correct.
That
It's
title.
just the titles are wrong.
It's just the
Yeah.
titles.
And the correct one, it was, I do see that on there, I recall that, because that error was made, and then a new one was sent to be corrected, and it must still have been the posting of the old one.
Okay.
So it's in a title there where it says 2021, 20,
Is the calendar correct?
their calendar is correct.
So you,
The error was made
so
on
you
the
would be
board.
Titles.
ultimately voting on the calendar.
Okay, perfect. Thank you to the
You are
calendar
correct.
committee for what the work that they put into it. And I just wanted to make sure that we're,
Mhm.
on the same page, and there's alignment there.
Good catch.
Yep.
Is that it for the report? You made the motion? Okay, that's it. Okay, now see if there's a motion. Perfect, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the 21-22 calendar?
So moved, Ryder. Second, Parker.
I have a motion and is from Board Member Ryder, a second from Board Member Parker. Board Member Tolkey.
Aye.
Board Member Parker.
Aye.
Board Member Ryder.
Aye.
Board Member Baker.
Aye.
And Board Member Mickelson. Aye. Passes 5-0. Next.
Okay, the next report is on the 2021 school year calendar. And again, on this calendar, we did have that same committee with the 29 total members. And there's two pieces of this that I will go into and not in great detail because we talked about it in the previous calendar. There was two changes that were recommended for the 21-22 calendar that we would also bring forward as changes for the 2021 school year calendar. The first of which would be when the state basketball tournament is in Sioux Falls, they would have that Friday be a compensatory day. So we would be decreasing the number of substitutes we'd need in the Sioux Falls School District, and the student attendance would not be impacted on that day as it would be a compensatory day. The second change is also in line with that early dismissal, late start for the elementary and middle schools, that we would have that be an early dismissal for both the elementary and the middle school so that they could have that at the same time. So those are the two recommended changes. I'll read what the actual change would be. It is recommended that the school board approve the following changes for the 2021 school calendar. And the calendar committee voted 20-0 in favor of this recommendation. And it would be to move the March 15th compensatory day. It was on a Monday. And we would move that to March 12th, which is that Friday of the state basketball tournament. And then moving the March 26th elementary middle school early dismissal late start to March 19th and make them both early dismissals. When we make them both early dismissals, it does impact the middle school's ability to go later with the meetings because it would be during that week that grades are due and they can't go beyond a certain time. So by moving it to March 26th, they're able to have their in-service amount of time that would be equal to before this move. So the two things would be moving the 15th to the 12th and the 26th date to the 19th. And those would be the recommended changes for the 2021 calendar by the committee. I would stand by for any questions.
This is Carly, and I am on the calendar committee, and I just want to make sure we state that we understand and did give thought to whether or not we wanted to make a change to the calendar for the upcoming school year, knowing that many times families do make plans, but we felt that this change, especially the early start was a beneficial one that actually would make life easier for a lot of people. So this didn't hesitate to change that. And then because it wasn't moving something away from an extended break from school where maybe people had already made plans or such, we felt comfortable making that other things as well as moving that compensatory day so that we could line up with the basketball tournament. And our goal really is to not necessarily pick boys basketball or the girls basketball or something like that, but to have that line up with whenever the state tournament is in Sioux Falls. So whatever teams are playing in Sioux Falls, that really helps us with substitutes and staffing and things like that, as well as allowing students to participate if their schools are participating in the tournament. So we did have good conversations with the group about those days as far as changes for the upcoming school year.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing no other comments or questions, do I have a motion to approve the changes to the 2021 calendar?
So moved, Parker.
Second.
I have a motion from Board Member Parker and a second from Board Member Baker. Board Member Tolke.
Aye.
Board Member Parker.
Aye.
Board Member Ryder.
Aye.
Board Member Baker.
Aye.
And Board Member Mickelson. Aye. It passes 5-0. Thank you. Last one. Thank you.
And the final calendar report for this evening, or recommendation for this evening, is really on the 1920 school year calendar. As you know, on January 17th, we did have one cancellation day of school due to inclement weather. We were a little bit nervous early in the morning because the snow did not start till about 8:30, but when it did, it came quite heavily. So we did have an inclement weather day on January 17th. And then, as you know, March 16th, 17th, and 18th, where we did have the coronavirus pandemic planning days, where we did begin the planning for the remote learning process. And so those days did occur on the 16th, 17th, and 18th of March. And then on March 23rd, we started the remote learning process. I will also point out that with Senate Bill 188 that was passed and signed by the governor, it did provide the Secretary of Education the authority to waive the minimum hours requirement by the South Dakota Codified Law 1326-1. Even if we did not need to utilize that and still were counting the remote learning days, we still would have been in excess of the number of days required by state law. Those 4 days that we missed, all of our schools still would have had enough days to be able to meet the minimum number of hours required. But with that, we were able to waive the minimum hours required and also utilize the remote learning as part of our hours for our student body. So the administrative recommendation of the superintendent's office is to use the remote learning days as instructional minutes per Senate Bill 188 and to maintain May 20th as the final student instructional day and May 21st as the final teacher workday for the 2019-2020 school year calendar. And I will stand by for questions.
I can my question, and then you can take it right back to answer. Dr. Knoll, will you just address for the public regarding that, maybe how our transition for returning items to schools and picking up as well will work within these days and so forth? Thank you.
We are currently working with all the school principals to establish a return process, and that'll look a little bit different at each one of the levels. At the elementary level, because there's so many things that we need to return back to the students, there's a lot of individuals that'll need to come in at a various times so we keep people separated and keep everyone safe to be able to package all those items up and to be able to put them into locations that we can return them safely to the students and the parents as we do a drive-through process. So it's really going to be into the back end of the vehicles, returning those, and then collecting. A different group will be collecting things such as the library books, Chromebooks, technology devices, And so that'll start somewhere in that week prior to the end of the school year. Those technology devices, we had conversations with the principals, and through that last week of learning, we will not use the technology piece. So it'll be pieces of learning that'll still go along with those learning boards, and the students will still be working up until the very end, but they will not be using a technology device to be able to do that. So they'll utilize a learning board. But with the elementaries and some of those sizes of the elementary, we really needed those extended days to be able to get all those returned back in. Then you go all the way through, and the middle school have a version of that same thing. The high school will not begin the return-in process until the 19th. And each one of the principals has the guidelines set up by a committee to be able to make sure we keep everybody safe again, and the process that they'll utilize to have everybody turn things in. They will not need as many days because they're not giving back as much as there would be in the middle school or the elementary. Ironically, a lot of the high school students do not use lockers anymore. It could have been a cost savings. Matter of fact, is a cost savings with the new construction of the high school we have. So it'll be much easier in the high school setting where we will not begin that until the semester test days, where normally we'd be collecting right at the end of those semester tests, the technology devices or others. So a committee came together, set guidelines out for all the schools to make sure that we keep everyone safe, but yet allow enough time for everybody to be able to turn things in and not need technology in the elementary and middle school for the last few days prior to the last student day. And the high school will go right up to the 19th before they'll begin turning in their devices. So we have planned that out through the elementary, middle, and high school levels.
And a follow-up to that. I'm just thinking for some of like the people who've been using the bus routes for the resources distribution from us, can they return those things to the buses when they're still running that last week? And I know we might even go past that last week.
And we will utilize buses in a variety of ways. Obviously still up until the end with the food services, but then also with some of the technology return, we do have some specific areas that we'll take the buses to go into to be able to return devices. The first process will be to collect those things back by people being able to go through and drop them off. That'll be able to help them to be able to pick up the items they need and to return the items to the school that we would have as school property. But we're also working with some very specific areas and principals to go into some areas and have a bus route that'll deliver products back to. Some of that will go into that next week, especially when we start to identify what areas have not been able to turn things in. Then we'll have buses that'll help us in that area the week after school.
Thank you. I know Board Member Baker has a question too.
I do, and this question really kind of gets us back into the
Maybe
calendar.
speak into this so that they can.
This question really gets us back into the calendar and as well as the approval that was looked at for the remote learning on our minimum hours of instruction. I'm wondering if we've had any consideration to using the remote learning process for snow days and in-service days and how that might impact students' minimum hours as well as our budgets, just looking ahead
In the future.
in the future.
That's a good question, and it's one that I know we can look at administratively and work through to see. Part of that also with the remote learning, part of that comes through also approval to be able to utilize those. That was approved through the Senate Bill 188, removing some of those hours, also through Ben Jones, allowing us to utilize the remote learning process as well. So that was approved at the state level. Whether it continued to be approved or not year over year, we don't know that.
I guess I don't look at the context of how the law read, but did it have a time frame on it? Sunset clause?
It does.
Okay.
Sunsets prior to the start of next school year.
Okay. Thanks.
And so it's something that I know Dr. Jones has talked about, that if we need to do some type of a deferred start or anything like that in the fall, he has made comment that he would seek out again to waive some of those minimum hours needed and the remote learning process.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Nolden? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the 1920 calendar?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second, Parker.
Thank you. I have a motion by Board Member Baker, second by Board Member Parker. Board Member Tolkien.
Aye.
Board Member Parker.
Aye.
Board Member Ryder.
Aye.
Board Member Baker.
Aye.
Board Member Mickelson. Aye. Approved 5-0. Thank you very much. On to the third quarter finance report.
Thank you, President Mickelson. The third quarter finance report, of course, encompasses a little bit of the big change, about half of the month in March, but most of that so far, we haven't seen the effects of that, and we'll see it in the final quarter. So if we look at the revenues, in the general fund, we project that we are going to be about $2.8 million to the good or above expected revenue. Now, most of that is bank franchise tax. In total, those other funds that used to be outside the formula that are getting phased in will cost us about $1.6 million in state aid 2 years down the road. So we will have to reserve that. Otherwise, we'll have a hole in our state aid budget 2 years down the road as we project. And then another $600,000 is a donation specifically for certain projects, kind of like federal funds are, where we either do those or you know, they're designated for adding to our budget. So the actual projection of where we don't have an expense with it or we don't have to reserve money to offset lost state aid in the future is going to be about $600,000 to the good on the revenue side. On the expenditure side, the expenditures have slowed down. They're behind last year's pace. We know there's going to be certain expenses that we're not going to incur. Overtime will be virtually down to a bare minimum. Substitute pay, which is just kind of on-demand pay, will be virtually nil the last couple of months. So right now we're projecting about $1.3 million to the good on the expenditure side. Hopefully that holds. That will come in handy because we know our budget's going to take a hit for next year. So we'd like to have that fund balance kind of, it's not very big compared to the rest of the state, but we'd like to have it as big as we can. On the special ed side, looking at the revenues first, actually, there's some higher, there's some lower. We're showing that about real close to as we budgeted. I would expect maybe just slightly to the positive, but not a significant amount. So our revenues are projected to be about right on. On the expenditure side, they're really tracking behind last year's pace, and it will slow down even further. So right now we're showing about a $1.9 million to the good on the expenditure side in the special ed fund. And as you know, the last few years we've kind of spent into that fund balance. So it's nice to get that replenished too as we look to kind of an uncertain economy going forward and what that's going to do to state aid. The capital outlay has kind of always been out. We were good with that. I mean, we kind of know what that looks like in September because we know what our when we do the September report, because we know what happened with our property taxes, and most of those expenditures happen at the very beginning of the year. So that still continues to track right where we thought it would back in September. One thing I'd say is we might want to consider, again, speeding up the capital outlay purchase for computers. There's going to be a lot more work with all those computers out and whatnot and getting all those deployed. We might have you consider allowing us to order those in advance, so it's going to hit this year, but it would just reduce next year's budget. But we've done that in the past as well. So with that, I would ask you to approve the third quarter report, and I'd stand by for questions.
Thank you, Todd. I really don't have any questions, but I just want the public and other board members are aware that, you know, obviously we know that the legislator's meeting again in June, and so we're being very cognizant of that and knowing that, you know, what we'll face in June is going to be something different than we've seen before. So we're trying to be very, I know Dr. Maher spoke to the media about that we're basically having a hiring freeze and so forth so that we make sure that we can secure quality education still for our students with knowing that our budget will be decreased, unlike the 2% we thought we were getting in March. So any other questions for Todd? Okay. Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the third quarter finance report?
So moved.
So moved, Ryder. Second, Ryder's.
Thank you. Board Member Tolke moved and Board Member Ryder second. Board Member Tolke.
Aye.
Board Member Parker.
Aye.
Board Member Ryder.
Aye.
Board Member Baker.
Aye.
And Board Member Mickelson. Aye. Approved 5-0. On to the capital improvement plan update. And is Jeff calling in or is Todd doing it?
Actually, Deanne will.
Oh, Deanne's doing it. Okay.
Deanne
I am
will-
here.
Oh, good. So Jeff, board members, Jeff is calling in, but the presentation Deanne's going to run here for us. Thank you.
And hopefully everyone can hear me. But this is the capital improvement April report. There's really going to be two kind of pieces to this report. The first part is the status for the second year project, which include Robert Frost, Lower Wilder, and Horace Mann. And the second portion will be kind of reviewing the change order process for Jefferson High School on that project, and hopefully you'll concur with what we're thinking on that. So there's two portions of the change order piece of that. So we'll go over that. Okay, then as we move to Robert Frost, the three projects for this summer have been bid, so, and awarded and are currently underway, but Robert Frost, the bond portion of that project is security entrance administration area on the east side of the building. We're constructing that, expanding the existing gymnasium, and providing 2 kindergarten restrooms to meet ADA standards. The capital outlay portion of that project is we'll be constructing a drop-off loop on 4th Avenue, and we'll be providing ADA ramps at 38th and 40th Street, replacing the main chiller, updating intercom and clock systems, and replacing corridor tile in various parts of the building. That bid came in at $2,096,628, which is approximately $80,500 under budget. Moving to Lower Wilder, the bond portion of that project is constructing an addition on the east side of the building. They'll have a elevator and stairs, and will provide tutor rooms, IEP facilitator office, and counselor's office. Those will meet the standards of the district, and we'll also provide a second level staff restroom on the second level for that building. The capital outlay portion of that project will renovate 8 existing restrooms, and we'll replacing existing galvanized piping in the tunnels and the pipe chases for those restrooms. And we'll also replace existing corridor tile and repaint the corridors. That project bid was $1,682,940, and that came in $195,000 over budget. And then moving on to Horace Mann Elementary, the bond portion is the security entrance admin area on the northeast corner of the building. Renovate existing admin area into some breakout rooms, and we'll be providing an additional parking lot on the southeast corner of this site. The capital outlay portion of that project will renovate 6 existing restrooms. We'll re-roof the last remaining portion where the construction is tying into, reconstruct the vestibule stairs on the northwest corner of the building. Then we'll replace existing galvanized piping in the tunnels and associated with the restrooms. And we'll also replace corridor tile at various areas of the school and replace the main chiller. That bid came in at $2,199,600, which is approximately $314,000 to the under budget. If you recall, we delayed the classroom portion of that project to the end of the CIP 5-year plan. So that's not in this portion. And if you look at the budget summary for all 3 of those schools, Robert Frost, Lower Wilder, and Horace Mann, the total bills were $5,979,168. And looking at that, it's approximately $199,500 under budget. We're still tracking good to the overall project. Any questions on that portion?
I'm assuming, this is Carly, I'm assuming we're getting started on some of these projects earlier than anticipated since the buildings are unoccupied?
The plan was to get started on the exterior portion of it, but we are starting on the inside, so we're getting a jump on it. So hopefully we'll be a lot easier in August when it's supposed to be done. So yes, we are.
Good.
Buildings are working with us pretty well on getting these started.
Good deal. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the Jefferson High School. The change order process and how we'll kind of roll that as we move forward. Just wanted to review the overall budget that has been approved for the project, and if you look at what I want to draw your attention to is the construction contingencies and owner contingency on that overall budget. The first portion is the building itself, and the total with the contingencies is $74,732,238, and that has not changed from what we approved with the GMP. Then the second portion, and we're breaking Terry Avenue out separately because there's some cost sharing with Southeast and the Boyce Partners, and that's why this is separated. But this was always separated in the project, and you can see the $49,984 contingency on that portion, and that would bring the overall total project to $75,779,607, and that remains the same as we move forward. So we had the contingencies up, and that's what we're going to be talking about for the change order portion of the project. So my thought is that we break out the construction contingency, and then we'll call that CC, and the owner contingency OC as we break out. So that construction contingency will be used for construction items that are identified during the process, and these items will be brought forward to the school board as how we do almost all our other projects as a contingency and the board authorization, and we'll list those items out and get approved through that process. The owner contingency, this is an item to be used when we ask for something to be added in the project that was not previously included. We might find some built-in items that we want to include when we do the furniture and equipment process and so forth. And my thought is that all items funded that will be taken out of this contingency will be brought forward as part of this report, so we can have more discussion if you want to have some items. I don't want to be the one adding those things or flipping through. So we'll discuss all the items that will come out of that $5 million owner contingency. All right? So moving forward, right now, there's 2 change orders that we're bringing forward for approval tonight. And the first one is change order 1, that would be construction contingency. And the initial contingency is $2.2 million, And there are 17 items, and I can certainly list them for you. A total of 53,915, and that would come out of that construction contingency, leaving a remainder of $2,146,085. I'll just highlight the most expensive piece of these. Installing drain tile behind the curb at the lowest portion of the project. The water level, and it was not drying properly, so we're putting some drain tile that would go out the drain system. That's 21,000 of that portion. Adding overflow roof drains that were identified that needed to be added, that was 6,000. Adding additional power at some movable seats in the Black Box Theater, that was approximately 4,000. And there's some credits along with that. If you want to go through those, we're going to provide 3 smoke vents in lieu of 5 in the theater. That's a credit of $8,000. Modified lighting in the locker rooms. We're doing a recessed light instead of surface mounted. $2,800. Adding smoke detectors and some duct work. That's $5,825. And then security cabling for card readers and such that were identified that we needed to add. You know, it's more economical for this electrical contractor. That was $8,000. So those are the big ones that would be part of a construction community. You know, so if we run into something that's additional structure or something that's not in done, those will be the ones that we.
Oh, we're losing somebody here.
Somebody bring it.
Those that are listening and not speaking, maybe mute your phone so that there's no feedback if you're watching it on YouTube Live or on Facebook, I think.
Okay, any questions on the construction contingency and what those might entail?
This is just a general question, Jeff. Would be with the COVID international pandemic, has any big time materials maybe not yet seen here coming down the pike that might need to be changed? You know, I was thinking like the terrazzo tile from Italy or something like that in the project that could affect greatly our budget.
Right now, everything, all the major pieces are spoken for, and most of them are on site. So we're still, every once in a while we have a surprise. You'll see a change order on ceramic tile. That we had some ceramic tile that was coming from Italy that we actually went and did some changing and looked at some of the things that were in the warehouses in the United States. So there'll be some of that coming, but we're actually going to save a little money on that portion. So we're trying our best we can. We have not heard of anything that's going to disrupt the opening of that. There is one item in Lower Wilder, that elevator may be a couple months delayed because of the COVID virus. So that is the only thing that right now that's sticking out that I know of that's COVID related that could impact that. We can still open that without the elevator installed. So we'd might have to wait for a break or something when we can put that in.
Thank you.
Okay, then the bigger one, and I think this was, we knew this one was coming, or we finally got all the numbers to it. But the owner contingency change order 1, several of these items when we were doing the signage and I was doing the custodial areas and whatnot, we saw some things we probably wanted to change in the floor covering that was in the project. And we're bringing it forward for your approval. Is the first item, RFP 5, is provide ceramic tile in 6 locker rooms in the restroom and shower area in lieu of concrete. Right now, there's just concrete in there, and almost everything we have has ceramic tile. This was inadvertently left out in the bid. So we're asking for it now. And then provide carpet in lieu of vinyl tile in 17 classrooms. This was a new tech, all the new tech classrooms had tile in there for some reason, and we've caught that. So we want to change that back. I talked to Dolly, and they certainly want carpet in their classrooms. And that was $28,034 for those changes. Then RFP 7 was a modified in 23 rooms in the upper level. These are all science labs or related science prep areas. Right now they're solid, they're just concrete. And concrete on second level will start showing cracks, and it'll also transmit sound through there. And we know we had a lot of staff members concerned about sound transmission with science labs, so asked for a price to put vinyl tile in there in lieu of just concrete. So quite a bit of square footage, and not only science rooms, but three art labs. We are keeping one art lab that concrete, and that would be where the clay pottery wheels are. And I think the concrete would probably be a better solution in that room. But that's about $158,670, and those requests would be total $186,704, which would come out of that owner contingency of the $5,133,343 number, leaving $4,947,269 remaining in that contingency. There's only one item that we're working on that we've identified, and that could be a future owner contingency, would be is to extend sidewalks through the CTE Academy down to CTE and to Madison Avenue. So this would be we kind of talked about this in our budget process. It would either be a capital outlay cost, or we could fund it for the project, and we thought it would be better to fund it through the project than to put it in our capital outlay. So, because it's really related to this project. So we're working on that number. We're working with the engineers on grading to get to that, and that'd be the only item that I know of that would be out there right now, an owner contingency item. So any questions on those or concerns that you might have with the owner contingency?
None here, Jeff. Thank you.
Okay, seeing none, just asking for acknowledgement of the April report, approved change orders, construction contingency 1 and owner contingency 1 for the Jefferson High School project.
Okay, move to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second, Parker.
I'll take roll call vote now. Board Member Tolke.
Aye.
Board Member Parker.
Aye.
Board Member Ryder.
Aye.
Board Member Baker.
Aye.
And Board Member Mickelson. Aye. Passes 5-0. We're moving on to the second reading of the grading recovery system policies. Kate or Carly?
This is Carly, I'll take it.
Thank you.
In an effort to keep our policies up to date, we began reviewing the IKA and its accompanying regulation grading recovering system. And there was a committee that met for quite some time to really dig in and review this. And it came to us for first reading a couple board meetings ago. And so today it is back as a second reading. It's been posted for public review on the district website since then, and we have not received any comments. Just as a reminder, the policy, some of the biggest changes were really kind of breaking it out from elementary school to middle school and to high school to really delineate how each of those grading policies and how each of it works for each each level. And then in addition, the biggest change would be for that middle school and high school grading scale to be changing from what's currently about a 7-point system to with a 10-point system that many other districts use as well. So there have not been any comments or requests to make any changes or discussion of any changes. And so I guess does anybody on the board have any comments or questions? Or Kate, anything to add?
There's nothing here, just thanks to both you and Board Member Parker for your hard work on this. I know this was a big undertaking, to the committee who
Yeah,
assisted
Dr.
as
Boyson
well.
spent a lot of time working on wordsmithing and checking references of things and reaching out to different people at all the different levels. And so I appreciate her time and dedication to make sure that what we are coming forward with is really comprehensive. So if there's no public comments and no questions from the board, I would move to approve the second reading of policy IKA and its accompanying regulation IKAR.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Board Member Baker seconds. I'll take roll call vote now. Board Member Tolke.
Aye.
Board Member Parker.
Aye.
Board Member Ryder.
Aye.
Board Member Baker.
Aye.
Board Member Mickelson. Aye. It passes 5-0. Next on the agenda is setting the alternative election date for the city school election. And Todd is back up.
Thank you, President Mickelson. As you know, the city and the school district had agreed to hold a combined election on April 14th. But in late March, the South Dakota legislature met and postponed all elections that were to be held in April and May, and then required that they be moved to a Tuesday in June. The city is proposing to hold the combined municipal school board election in conjunction with the state primary election to be held on June 2nd, 2020. Under that plan, voters will have an opportunity to vote their primary ballot and then can receive the city school district ballot at the same time. There will be 2 ballot boxes, one for the primary and one for the city school ballots, which have already been prepared. Because the city and school district had to abide by the legal deadline set for the April 14th election, absentee balloting began March 30th, 2020. Ballots were mailed to those voters who had requested them. In-person absentee voting also began March 30th. All deadlines will be changed to meet the deadlines of the new election date. The new deadline to register to vote in the June 2nd election is May 18th. Absentee balloting will continue. Absentee ballots must be requested by June 1, 2020 at 5 p.m. Absentee ballots must be returned to Election Central before the polls close at 7 p.m. June 2nd, 2020. Deadline for campaign finance reports will be extended as well. The pre-election report is due May 18th. The post-election report will be due in the finance office July 17th, 2020. Polling places may be changed due to the new election date, and poll workers will have to be contacted with the new date and possibly a new location. All required legal notices will have to be published to meet the requirements of the new dates. And a new map will be created and the district's website will be updated as information becomes available. So with that, we'd ask that you approve the June 2nd, 2020 as the revised date for our 2020 school district election in accordance with the law passed by the South Dakota legislature March 30th of 2020. And I'd stand by for any questions.
Just one point of clarification, the 2 county commissions still have to pass this approval,
they all
right?
have to agree. Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Bitt? Seeing none, could I have the, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the June 2nd, 2020 as the revised date for the 2020 school district election?
So moved.
Board Member Baker, do I have a second? Did we lose them again? Yep, it says hold. What's the button we have to push when we do that? It still says hold. Can you guys hear me? She said, she goes, my line went dead. I tried to call back. I'm getting hold music. She got cut off too.
I'm hearing from stuff too.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah, and see, I just grabbed it like this, so I didn't push anything. It's still green, yeah. And it's, the clock's running on it, like it's still. Going.
We're close, but we have 2 items of business.
Yeah, we have to.
Set the election and
And-
Let's
the.
quickly call each of them individually.
Can
I
they,
wonder if,
can we vote that way? I
is that
suppose.
like an executive session?
On here, we could do that.
Oh, good.
Oh, here's, yep.
Would-
Board Member Parker, would you like to vote?
Yes.
Thank you. We think everybody got kicked off for some reason.
I'm calling Todd.
Okay, and
I'll
Brian's
call
gonna call Todd and Nan's calling Carly.
I'm watching on YouTube, so.
Hey, I think we're gonna vote for the phone. So, hang on. I've got
Hi,
Mr.
Carly, we're gonna
Tolkien on the
vote by
phone here.
phone.
Okay, we'll put her to the speaker too. Board Member Ryder,
Aye.
Board Member Tolkien.
Aye.
Thank you, and we'll quickly move on. I'm just going to announce May 4th through the 8th is Teacher Appreciation Week as a reminder to everyone to thank their teachers, even especially this year with all that's been going on. So that and a reminder of the boundary input starting on Monday evening. So thank you very much. Do I have a motion to adjourn? By Board Member Parker, moved. Second? Board Member Board Member Ryder, Board Member Tolkien,
Aye.
Board Member Parker,
Aye.
Board Member Ryder,
Aye.
Board Member Baker,
Aye.
and Board Member Mickelson. We are adjourned. Sorry, guys.
Well done.
Are you all there? Thanks for putting up with that. I don't know what's going on with this thing.
There's a 75-minute limit or something.
Yeah, because it says it's still going on here. Next week, allegedly, there's somebody coming here, so tomorrow, so it's gonna just be through the mics, so we won't have to use this thing, so that issue will hopefully be resolved by the time we have our work session and STI next week.
Sure.
Okay,
Sounds good.
thank you all.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Peace out.
Sounds good. Give you all your phones. Here's yours.